My sister sat across from me at Thanksgiving dinner, passed me the cranberry sauce, and smiled. She had been sleeping with my partner for 2 years, and in 6 weeks, I was going to make sure everyone at that table knew it. James and I had been together for 5 years when the world started shifting beneath me. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party, both of us lingering near the same bookshelf, both pretending we weren't hiding from small talk. He was quiet in a way that felt deliberate, like he chose his silences the way other people chose their words. I loved that about him. I loved that he remembered the names of my coworkers, that he kept my favorite tea stocked even though he hated the smell of it, that when my father got sick, he drove me to the hospital 3 nights in a row without being asked. My younger sister, Brooke, adored him. She was 26 to my 31, and she had always orbited close to me. She borrowed my clothes, asked my advice on everything from lease agreements to first dates, and she treated James like the older brother she never had. At least that is what I told myself. She would text him memes. She would pour his wine at dinner before pouring her own. She once mentioned, laughing, that she had accidentally called him instead of me, because their names were next to each other in her phone. I laughed too. The first crack was a passcode. James had never hidden his phone from me, not once in 5 years. We were not the type to snoop, which meant there had never been a reason to. But one evening in September, I picked up his phone to check the time on a delivery, and the 4-digit code I had used 100 times did not work. I tried it again. Nothing. I set the phone down and told myself it was an automatic update, a security prompt, something meaningless. He changed it back 2 days later without mentioning it, and that silence was louder than the lock itself. Then came the weekend. He told me on Thursday he was going to help his college friend Dan move into a new apartment. On Saturday. On Sunday, when my mother asked what he had been up to, he said he had spent Saturday catching up on work at a coffee shop downtown. It was a small inconsistency, the kind most people would miss. But I didn't miss it. I sat with it for 3 days, turning it over like a stone in my hand, hoping it would smooth into something harmless. It didn't. I started watching, not obsessively, not frantically, but with a kind of terrible patience I didn't know I had. I noticed that James got tense before family gatherings, not in the way of someone who dislikes crowds, but in the way of someone managing something. I noticed that Brooke had started arriving late to dinners, always slightly flushed, always with an excuse that was just a little too polished. I noticed that they never stood next to each other anymore. People who have nothing to hide do not choreograph distance. The confirmation came on a Tuesday night in October. James was in the shower and his phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a message from a contact saved as Dan M. It read, "Last night was everything. I can still feel you." I did not pick up the phone. I did not need to. I stood there in our bedroom, the shower running on the other side of the wall, and I felt the floor tilt. My hands were shaking, but my mind was extraordinarily still. Dan M. I said it out loud in the empty room. Brooke's middle name is Danielle. She had been in his phone the whole time, 1 letter away from invisible. He had never been a good liar, just a lazy one. I walked to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. I drank it standing at the sink, staring at nothing, and I let the understanding settle into me like cold water filling a basement. Over the next week, I confirmed everything without saying a word. I checked our shared laptop and found a second email account he had not bothered to sign out of. The messages went back 26 months. 26 months. They had started the affair 3 months before my father's diagnosis, which meant that every hospital visit, every family dinner, every Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthday, where Brooke hugged me and James held my hand. Every single one of those moments had been staged. I read messages where she called him baby. I read messages where he told her he felt guilty but not guilty enough to stop. I read one where Brooke wrote that she felt closer to me than ever, that the secret was making her appreciate our relationship more, and I had to close the laptop because my vision went white. She had looked me in the eye at every family dinner for 2 years. She She had asked me for advice on her love life while she was sleeping with the man I came home to every night. She had sat beside me at our father's bedside and held my hand with the same hand she used to text my partner that she missed him. For 2 days, I did nothing. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, performing the rituals of a life that no longer existed. I cooked dinner. I answered emails. I slept beside James and felt nothing. On the third morning, I woke up before the alarm, and something inside me had changed. The grief was still there, but it had frozen over, and beneath the ice was something clear and deliberate and very, very patient. I was not going to scream. I was not going to confront. I was not going to give either of them the mercy of a private reckoning, because they had not given me the mercy of the truth. I was going to wait, and when I was ready, I was going to make sure that every person who had ever watched Brooke smile at me across a dinner table understood exactly what that smile had been hiding. I gave myself 6 weeks. The timing was deliberate. My mother's birthday fell in early December, and every year the entire family gathered at our house for a dinner party. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family, friends. 30 people, sometimes more. That was my stage. I spent the first 2 weeks gathering evidence quietly and thoroughly. I screenshotted every message from the second email account, every text chain that mentioned dates and locations, every exchange that proved the timeline. I saved them to a drive James did not know existed. I cataloged everything with a calm that should have frightened me, but didn't. In week 3, I made my first move. I called Brooke and told her I wanted to do something special. For Mom's birthday, I suggested we put together a slideshow of family photos and memories to play during dinner. Brooke loved the idea. She offered to help me collect photos. She sent me dozens, including several from holidays where I now knew she had come straight from James's arms to our mother's table. I thanked her for every one. During week 4, I built the slideshow. The first 40 slides were exactly what everyone expected. Warm photos, family milestones, a few childhood throwbacks that would make Mom cry. Slides 41 through 55 were screenshots. Text messages with dates, an email where James described meeting Brooke at a hotel 6 blocks from our apartment on the night of my 30th birthday. A message from Brooke to James that read, "She has no idea, and honestly, that makes it easier." I arranged them chronologically so the audience would experience the timeline the way I had, as a slow, sickening reveal. What neither of them knew was that I had also prepared for the one thing that could go wrong. In week 5, Brooke mentioned casually that she might not make it to Mom's dinner. Work was busy, she said. I felt ice in my stomach. If she wasn't there, the symmetry collapsed. So I called my mother and told her Brooke had been stressed lately, that it would mean the world if Mom personally asked her to come. Mom called Brooke that evening. Brooke confirmed the next morning. I exhaled for the first time in days. The night of the party, I arrived early and loaded the slideshow onto my mother's laptop, which was already connected to the living room television. James helped me carry in the dessert. Brooke arrived 20 minutes later in a green dress, and she hugged me at the door and told me I looked beautiful. I told her she did too. I meant it. She always had been the prettier one. That had never bothered me before. It didn't bother me now either, just for different reasons. Dinner was lovely. Mom was happy. The house was full of noise and warmth. At 8:30, I stood up and said I had a surprise, and I started the slideshow. The first 40 slides played exactly as planned. People laughed at old photos. Mom wiped her eyes, and then slide 41 appeared on the screen, and the laughter died. The first screenshot was simple enough that people squinted, confused, a text exchange, names visible, dated 18 months earlier. By slide 43, the room was silent. By slide 46, my mother had her hand over her mouth. James stood up so fast his chair hit the wall behind him. Brooke did not move. She sat staring at the screen with an expression I will never forget, perfectly still, perfectly blank, like someone who had rehearsed every version of this moment except the real one. James said my name, I did not look at him. I watched the room instead. I watched my uncle put down his fork. I watched my cousin's wife reach for her phone and then think better of it. I watched my mother turn to look at Brooke with something worse than anger. It was recognition. The look of a woman rearranging 2 years of memories in real time and finding rot beneath every single one. Brooke finally spoke. She said it wasn't what it looked like. The words landed in that silent room like a bird hitting a window. My aunt actually laughed, a single sharp sound that she immediately covered with her hand. James grabbed his jacket and left without another word. He did not say goodbye to anyone. He did not say goodbye to Brooke. She sat there for 11 more minutes. I know because I counted. 11 minutes in a room full of people who now knew exactly who she was, and not one of them spoke to her. She left through the back door. Mom did not follow her. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. James moved out within the week. He sent one text that said I didn't deserve what he did, which was the first honest thing he had communicated in 2 years. Brooke called me once, 3 days after the party. I let it go to voicemail. She said she was sorry, that it had started as something meaningless and become something she couldn't control. I deleted it. Without replaying it, my mother didn't speak to Brooke for 4 months. When she finally did, their relationship was a different shape, smaller and more cautious, like a bone that healed crooked. I don't feel victorious. People expect me to, and I understand why. But what I actually feel is clean. Not happy, not vindicated. Clean the way a house feels after you've thrown out something that was rotting behind the walls for years. The smell is gone, the structure is sound, but you still remember what it was like to live with that faint, unplaceable stench and wonder if you were imagining it. I wasn't imagining it.